Good morning, everyone. It's time to go on the record.
All of a sudden, he walked into Bertucci's, and I saw him just start stabbing people.
Terror in Taunton. Failure of the state's mental health care?
We're going to move out of Cleveland unified, together, and ready to take on Hillary Clinton.
Kirsten Hughes is backing Donald Trump all the way to November. The head of the Massachusetts Republican Party is determined to get voters to follow, and she's our guest today. Much to discuss. And
Trump says Bill Clinton is fair game as a campaign target. Your thoughts?
From WCPB Boston, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. Thank you for joining us at OTR this morning. Our guest this morning is the chairwoman of the Massachusetts Republican Party, Kirsten Hughes. She was first elected to head her party in 2013. She also serves as the president of the Quincy City Council. She's a former deputy finance director for Senator Scott Brown's re-election campaign. She's making her maiden voyage. We greatly appreciate you joining us on OTR this morning. Ready to go. And she's a singer, by the way, but we won't make you sing.
Oh, good.
Unless you want to sing.
Unless we don't like the answers, and then we'll make you sing.
I don't know. We'll see how the answers
I was going to say, we got the pop quiz here. Maybe we'll be singing through that.
I have to sing through that.
Right.
So you're one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters here in Massachusetts. What do the numbers tell you about this pretty traditionally Democratic state in November? Do you think it's possible for him to beat Hillary Clinton in Massachusetts?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see what Donald Trump does now that he's the presumptive nominee. You know, there are certainly constituencies that he has some work to do and really reach out to some of those communities, which are big voting blocks here. But my primary responsibility is to make sure that those down ballot races here in Massachusetts have the resources they need in order to turn Republican or in order to keep some of the gains we've made in the past couple of cycles.
So you're not ready to say that he could beat Hillary Clinton in Massachusetts yet?
Well, listen, regardless of what happens at the top of the ticket, we're certain that in 2016, Republicans are going to be able to make the case that we represent a real balance in state government here, and that we will be able to seize upon folks' frustration. I think you see through the Trump campaign and maybe through the Sanders movement on the other side, that that we're going to be able to tap into that frustration with business as usual, which here in Massachusetts means Democrats running amok. And we're going to lend some help to Governor Baker
I want to play something for you. This is a soundbite. Not every Republican in Massachusetts is following your footsteps. Listen to this, please.
I'm a mother of 3 girls, and I look toward the future and I think our future is not going to get any brighter with this man. He's going to send women back 75 years.
Obviously, this man she's referring to is Donald Trump. That is Jennifer Nassau, your predecessor as party chair. What's your response to what she says? Being a mother, being a former head of the party here in Massachusetts.
Well, I have great respect for Jen and envious in some ways of her position as a former chair. Because, look, at the end of the day, listen, I don't agree with everything everyone says 100% of the time. And there are differences there between myself and the top of the ticket, perhaps. But at the end of the day, this is about making sure that Hillary Clinton is not our next president. And folks in this party, again, Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee now. Folks in this party are going to start to rally behind the message that we cannot allow Hillary Clinton to take over the White House and take this country in another direction down the same road Obama has been taking.
Have you tried to have that conversation with Jennifer in person?
No.
To try to convince her?
No, I haven't. Look, it's not my job to convince her or anyone else. Again, the Trump campaign has to do the work themselves. They have to get out there and talk to those constituencies, women, minorities, folks in communities and cities and places where they need to do better, where we see, as a result of 2014, places where Governor Baker went that Republicans hadn't campaigned in the past and did enormously well.
You're just speaking of Governor Baker. We have another soundbite we'd like to play for you. What about the head of the party here in Massachusetts? It's the governor. Listen to this.
I'm not going to vote for Mr. Trump, and I sincerely doubt I'll be voting for Hillary Clinton either.
Well,
he's not even going to the convention.
He's not going to the convention. That's okay. Listen, I think people respect Governor Baker here in Massachusetts. As he says, people don't pay him to go to conventions. They don't pay him to go out and campaign for
But he is the
national
head of the
politicians.
party, and he does not like the nominee. He is doing exactly the opposite of what you're recommending Republicans do, which is back Trump to stop Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's a personal choice that he's free to make as a voter. However, you know, I want to point out the fact that the governor has a very different job from what my job is. And the governor's responsibility is to make sure that Massachusetts works for the folks here in Massachusetts. And I think people are proud of the fact that he's doing that. And look at the problems we had in the past when Deval Patrick and Elizabeth Warren went out and campaigned, spent so many months on the road campaigning for national campaigns, national candidates. Deval Patrick took his eye off the ball here in Massachusetts, which allowed things to only get worse. The T, DCF, all these things at a time when Massachusetts needed a strong governor to focus on things here at home. We had problems. He was off campaigning for national campaigns. So I think folks are going to be happy with the fact that Governor Baker is focused, again, solely on Massachusetts.
Can you support or accept Trump's comments on women, on Muslims, on Hispanics? Can you stand next to those? Can you support those?
Look, I'm not going to pretend that I like everything that Donald Trump says, for sure. And I do have some mental reservations about a lot of those statements. However, the fact exists that Hillary Clinton is going to take this country down the same road Obama has in terms of failed policies, failed fiscal policies, failed, obviously, world policies that have led us to a, I think, less strong position. And I'm committed to making sure that that's not happening.
Bottom line, you have a really uphill fight here with people within your own party, don't you, over the next 6 months?
Well, the Trump campaign is really going to have to, again, reach out to those folks that are within the party to make sure that they are supporting the campaign, and also reach out to those constituencies, which we talked about earlier, to make sure that they're winning the vote. And I think
do you get a sense that they're going to bring some money in here to do that? Do you think the Trump campaign will spend money in Massachusetts, or their resources will be put to other states where it's perhaps they've got a better chance of winning?
Well, we'll see what they do. I mean, you know, they have to take care of the national campaign. They have to take care of those battleground states, which are really important in presidential years. I don't think Massachusetts, it's obviously not a secret, has ever been a battleground state for the presidential election. But, you know, we'll see what they do. My focus is making sure that our funds, our resources are spent on down ballot races and making sure that Republicans make gains in the House and the Senate here.
Are you ready for the OTR pop quiz? Are you warming up your vocal cords?
I don't know.
Yes, she is.
I don't know. Right now, my mother is cringing as she's watching
Don't worry about it, Mike.
If you sing your answers, maybe it'll give you extra points.
I like that.
I do like that. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, a Donald Trump surrogate, alleges the House Speaker Paul Ryan's initial reluctance to back the brash Trump is based on a personal ulterior motive for, again, the Speaker. What is the personal ulterior motive that Governor Palin believes exists?
Oh, I don't know. Isn't this where she said he's got it by a prayer or a song or something like that? I don't know. He wants to get Donald Trump's hairspray taken?
That's not bad. That's not bad. It's actually Ryan wants to run for president in 2020. Of course, Ryan denies this, but she says that's his ulterior motive.
Oh, yeah.
Question 2. What prominent Republican made a thinly veiled reference to Trump and Bernie Sanders when he addressed Indiana college grads by saying, "We live in tumultuous times. Demagogues on the right and the left draw upon our darker angels. We live in tumultuous times. Demagogues on the right and the left draw upon our darker angels." It does have a Massachusetts connection.
It's someone you've actually met.
Someone I've actually met, and they said it. What?
Prominent Republican
Yes.
made the thinly veiled reference to Trump and Bernie Sanders. He addressed a college in Indiana by saying, "We live in tumultuous times. Demagogues on the right and the left draw upon our darker angels."
Stuck in the middle with you. I don't know.
That was good, though. See, the song is working now.
There you go.
Steelers Wheel is going to take us to break, right? Now, Governor Mitt Romney, a two-time GOP
Oh, yeah,
presidential nominee.
of course.
We continue on the record.
Sorry,
with
Gov.
Kirsten Hughes.